Your heart is a liability. It is a traitor living inside your chest. They told you to follow it. They told you that passion is the engine of greatness. They lied. Look at the wreckage of your own life. Every bad decision, every text you shouldn't have sent, every opportunity you let slip through your fingers because you were afraid, anxious, or too excited. What was the common denominator? Emotion. You felt. And because you felt, you lost. The world belongs to the cold. It belongs to the surgical. It belongs to the men and women who can look at a disaster and feel absolutely nothing but the urge to calculate the next move. Robert Greene, the modern master of power strategy, did not write about passion. He wrote about virtue, strategic foresight, and leverage. And he understood a truth that modern society tries to drug you out of knowing. The person who cares the least controls the most. If you can sever the connection between your reality and your emotional response, you become a ghost. You cannot be hurt. You cannot be manipulated. You cannot be predicted. You enter a state of existence I call the zero state. Most people live their lives at a fever pitch. Up, down, happy, sad, manic, depressed. They are leaves in a hurricane. I am going to teach you how to become the eye of the storm. But this is not for the weak. We are not here to manage your anxiety. We are here to amputate the part of you that bleeds. If you are ready to stop feeling and start conquering, listen, you must understand what you are fighting. You are fighting your own biology. Evolution did not design you to be happy, and it certainly didn't design you to be a CEO, a leader, or a conqueror. It designed you to survive in a tribe of 50 people on the savannah. Your emotions, fear, shame, desire for approval, are outdated software. Fear was meant to stop you from being eaten by a lion. Now fear stops you from starting the business. Fear stops you from walking away from a toxic partner. The software is glitching. It fires alarm bells in a safe room. When you feel a strong emotion, your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for logic, strategy, and long-term planning, shuts down. You become reactive. You become an animal responding to a stimulus. Robert Greene observed the same principle. A leader ruled by unchecked emotion is always at risk. Emotional people are predictable, exploitable, and ultimately controlled by the world they fail to command. They react to present necessities, pain, hunger, lust, fear. And because they react, they are easy to trick. If I can make you angry, I own you. If I can make you crave my validation, I own you. If I can make you feel guilty, I own you. The first step to winning everything is to reclaim ownership of your own neural pathways. You must look at your emotions not as truth, but as noise. Imagine you are a pilot flying a plane through a storm. Your instruments are going haywire. Alarms are screaming, "Pull up! Danger!" The amateur pilot panics. He follows the alarms. He crashes. The master pilot ignores the noise. He looks at the horizon. He trusts the coordinates. He feels nothing. He lands the plane. You are the pilot. Your emotions are the broken instruments. Stop listening to them. This is where we leave the realm of self-help and enter the realm of power. Now that you understand the zero state, it is time to kill hope. I know that sounds wrong. You've been told hope is beautiful, that it is a soft, comforting thing. No, hope is a beggar. Hope is the strategy of the powerless. The person who hopes waits for the world to give them something. They wait for luck. They wait for mercy. They wait for the right time. Robert Greene teaches that fortune, luck, chance, opportunity is to be dominated, not waited upon. When you hope, you abdicate control. You say, "I hope this works out." The strategist says, "I will engineer this so it cannot fail." Do you see the difference? One is passive, one is aggressive. Think of the last time you were in a bad situation, financial ruin, a breakup, a business crisis. You spent nights hoping it would improve. You prayed, you visualized. And what happened? Nothing. The situation only changed when you became cold, analytical, detached. When you looked at the ledger, saw the red ink, and made the brutal cuts. When you evaluated a relationship, saw the rot, and walked out the door. Action cures fear. Hope prolongs it. Replace hope with calculation. Feel nothing about the future. Do not fantasize about victory. Do not dread defeat. Simply assess the board. Move the pawn. If you lose a piece, do not cry. Do not hope for miracles. Look at the remaining pieces. Move again. This is the zero state, a vacuum of expectation. When you expect nothing, you are ready for everything. Robert Greene said, "A prudent man should always follow in the footsteps of great men and imitate those who have been most outstanding, so that if his own virtue does not reach that height, at least it will have some tinge of it. Great men do not hope. They execute. Start today. Catch yourself saying, 'I hope.' Stop. Rephrase it. 'I intend.' 'I will. I am doing.' Kill the beggar inside you. Comfort is the enemy of power. If you want to win, you must excise pity from your heart. Pity is often disguised as empathy, but they are not the same. Empathy is understanding what someone feels. Pity is suffering because they are suffering. Often pity is just arrogance disguised as morality. You look down on someone and feel bad for them, thinking it demonstrates your own virtue. But in the arena of strategy and influence, pity is a fatal leak in the hull of your ship, an opening that others can exploit without your awareness. Robert Greene has analyzed countless leaders, rulers, and corporate titans who maintain dominance by cultivating detachment, precision, and clarity in the face of human weakness. He observed that the most effective operators in history, those who built empires, preserved authority, and reshaped markets, were never motivated by compassion for incompetence. They were guided by the structural logic of power itself. Modern equivalents of Cesare Borgia's ruthlessness exist in CEOs who dismantle failing divisions without hesitation, generals who remove ineffective commanders in the field, and innovators who abandon projects and partnerships that drain resources or loyalty. The principle is the same. Strategic ruthlessness is not cruelty. It is a necessary act of preservation and leverage. Applying this to your life requires identifying the areas where your resources, time, energy, attention, emotional bandwidth are being drained by others who provide nothing in return. There are friends, family, colleagues, and acquaintances who continually demand your investment, your patience, and your emotional labor, often without reciprocating or recognizing your value. The instinct for pity is natural. It is a vestige of human social evolution that once protected tribal cohesion. But in modern competitive and complex systems, this instinct undermines your position. Every time you feel pity for someone who is sabotaging their own life, complaining endlessly, or obstructing your path, you are writing a personal check from your own energy account to fund their dysfunction. Stop. You cannot save everyone. By attempting to carry the weak, you compromise your own ascendancy. You dilute your focus and diminish your influence. Robert Greene frames this as the importance of calculating energy allocation. Invest only where leverage can be created or maintained. Withdraw from situations that consume resources without return. In practice, this means disengaging from people and obligations that are strategically irrelevant, emotionally draining, or damaging to your trajectory. Nature demonstrates the same principle. The lion does not pause to pity a wounded gazelle. The predator ensures the ecosystem remains balanced by maintaining strength, precision, and selective attention. The principle translates to human systems, your network, your team, your household, your business, where the strong must preserve their power by maintaining boundaries and enforcing consequences. Ask yourself, is this emotion solving the problem, or is it indulging the illusion of moral superiority? Usually, it is the latter. Strategic pity is costly. Indulgent pity is catastrophic. By allowing yourself to be weighed down by unnecessary compassion, you risk losing your competitive edge, eroding the respect of others, and ceding control of your environment. Greene's modern interpretation stresses that control over one's energy is inseparable from control over outcomes. Emotional indulgence creates vulnerability, predictability, and exposure. Conversely, deliberate detachment produces clarity, authority, and leverage. Your goal is to become structurally invulnerable. The emotional storms around you no longer dictate your actions, and your responses are calibrated to power, not sentiment. You must cultivate the mindset of the strategist. Evaluate every interpersonal interaction as a system of inputs and outputs. Every demand on your time as a potential liability. Every appeal to your sympathy as a strategic variable. This does not make you heartless. It makes you resilient. The modern operator understands that value is finite and must be allocated with precision. When you remove your energy from unproductive drains, you amplify your effectiveness in areas that matter: leadership, wealth creation, influence, and personal mastery. It is here that the difference between the average person and the strategic mind emerges. The ordinary reacts to emotion. The strategist converts observation into leverage. You see the dynamics, map the weaknesses, calculate the outcomes, and act with ruthless patience. Pity, when wielded indiscriminately, is a surrender to chaos. When replaced with deliberate detachment, it becomes a tool for structural advantage. Your ambition, your trajectory, your empire, personal or professional, is insulated by this discipline. Every time you resist the pull of compassion for the unworthy, every time you refuse to fund someone else's failure, you fortify your position, conserve your resources, and increase your influence. This is modern power distilled. Execute without indulgence, preserve your assets, and observe without attachment. It is the same logic Robert Greene extracts from history and psychology. The people who dominate are not those who give freely, but those who conserve, calculate, and move with intent. In your life, the challenge is the same. Excise pity, maintain strategic detachment, and deploy your energy where it compounds. Do this consistently and the returns are exponential. Weakness is contagious. Strength is self-propagating. By shedding the weight of unnecessary emotional labor, you become a zero-state operator, immune to manipulation, unexploitable, and able to turn every challenge into leverage. Your heart is no longer a liability. It becomes a reservoir of focused power, distributed only where it achieves measurable effect. This is the path from human vulnerability to strategic invincibility, the modern extension of the lessons once written by the princes and power players whom Greene meticulously analyzed. Your emotions are the greatest barrier between you and absolute control. Fear, hope, desire, guilt, and even love can be hijacked by others to manipulate, distract, and weaken you. Robert Greene's analysis of historical and modern power dynamics shows that those who dominate their environments are not the most passionate or emotional, but those who attain the zero state, a mental state of neutrality, detachment, and absolute calculation. Imagine standing in the eye of a hurricane. Everything around you whirls in chaos, panic, and unpredictability, but you remain unshaken, observing, calculating, and responding with precision. Your prefrontal cortex, the center of logic, strategy, and long-term planning, remains fully engaged, while the limbic system, the seat of raw emotion, is contained, disciplined, and subordinate to your strategy. Modern leaders, CEOs, and military tacticians operate in this manner. Every emotional impulse is converted into data. Every instinctual reaction is analyzed for leverage, and every decision is informed by structural advantage rather than fleeting sentiment. The zero state is not emotional suppression, it is emotional mastery. It is the ability to feel without being manipulated by feeling, to observe chaos without being pulled into it, to act while the untrained are reacting. Historical figures such as Alexander the Great, Clausewitz, and modern-day strategists like hedge fund titans, military generals, and corporate turnaround experts demonstrate this principle repeatedly. The person who detaches from emotional turbulence controls the narrative, the battlefield, and the market. Hope is the weapon of the powerless. Those who wait for luck, mercy, or divine timing cede control. Those who act coldly, deliberately, and structurally seize the initiative. By replacing hope with calculated intent, you eliminate reliance on chance and others' behavior. Each move you make must be deliberate, each outcome anticipated, each loss absorbed without complaint. Every distraction, every emotional entanglement, every indulgence in compassion for the weak dilutes your leverage. Greene describes these moments as the ultimate test of sovereignty. Can you hold yourself accountable to your own strategy while the world seeks to pull your attention, your energy, and your resources into chaos? The zero state creates clarity. It allows you to see the board as it truly is, not as filtered through panic, desire, or insecurity. From this position, the weak appear frantic, reactive, and predictable, while you move with the precision of a chess grandmaster, executing strategies they cannot even perceive. The modern operator understands that fortune or luck is a variable that can be manipulated through preparation, calculation, and timing. By remaining unemotional, you are not cold-hearted. You are structurally invincible. Every crisis becomes a tool, every setback a source of data, every confrontation an opportunity to consolidate your influence. In practical terms, this means disengaging from drama, refusing to invest energy in unworthy conflicts, and converting emotional reactions into strategic insight. Anger, jealousy, and fear are transformed into risk assessment and tactical foresight. Desire is transformed into leverage and opportunity. This is the difference between the ordinary and the extraordinary. The one who succumbs to feeling is consumed by circumstance, while the zero-state operator bends circumstance to their will. In the zero state, the world is not a threat. It is a field of calculations, where every interaction, every transaction, and every human connection is mapped for potential advantage. This mental discipline is not innate. It is cultivated, refined, and reinforced by daily practice, by observing history, analyzing leaders, and internalizing the lessons of strategic detachment. The person who reaches this state becomes unassailable. Their decisions are impervious to manipulation, their vision unhindered by emotion, and their execution precise beyond what the impulsive can comprehend. To achieve the zero state is to own your reality, to convert vulnerability into leverage, chaos into opportunity, and humanity itself into a disciplined instrument of power. Every step you take from this vantage is informed, deliberate, and unstoppable. The path is not easy. It demands relentless self-observation, brutal honesty about your emotional weaknesses, and daily recalibration of your responses to align with long-term advantage. This is modern strategic mastery distilled from Greene's studies. Emotion is neutralized. The mind becomes the instrument, and the individual rises above the turbulence that enslaves ordinary men and women. You are no longer a passenger of circumstance. You are the pilot, the architect, and the executor. The zero state is freedom, power, and control incarnate. Your compassion is a liability. Every time you intervene emotionally, every time you soften, every time you allow sentiment to govern your decisions, you expose yourself to exploitation and inefficiency. Robert Greene's framework of power dynamics shows that the most effective operators employ strategic cruelty, not for sadism, but as a tool of precision and control. Every ruthless decision, every refusal to be dragged into someone else's chaos, is an act of structural preservation. Stop saving those who refuse to solve their own problems. Stop sacrificing progress for sentiment. Stop letting pity, guilt, or hope dictate your strategy. When you are faced with toxic employees, destructive partners, or parasitic family members, understand that maintaining their comfort at the cost of your momentum is a strategic error. Fire the employee, leave the partner, and sever non-essential obligations without hesitation. Every act of selective detachment reinforces your power. Greene emphasizes that fear, when calibrated correctly, is a tool of order. Respect, when linked to predictable structure, becomes leverage. Your own energy, attention, and resources are finite. Treat them as such. Every time you allow emotional distraction, you transfer authority over your actions to others. Strategic cruelty is not cruelty for cruelty's sake. It is the disciplined removal of interference that prevents progress. The zero state, combined with strategic detachment, allows you to act decisively. Where others waver in moral discomfort, you act with clarity. Where others are blinded by sentiment, you see structural reality. The principle is simple. The world responds to decisiveness, not empathy. In practical terms, this means identifying every drain on your time, energy, and influence, and removing it cleanly. It means setting boundaries that are absolute and non-negotiable. It means being willing to accept that your actions, though perhaps perceived as harsh, are necessary to preserve your trajectory and your influence. The individuals who cannot endure this clarity will resist, object, or project, but their resistance is merely data, information about how others respond to unflinching control. Observe, adjust, and move again. By mastering strategic cruelty, you maintain integrity of purpose while imposing natural consequences. You neutralize chaos without being consumed by it. You reclaim authority over your environment by refusing to allow weakness, either yours or others, to dictate outcomes. Greene's modern application emphasizes, this is not about malice. It is about structural efficiency, personal sovereignty, and strategic mastery. Every crisis becomes an opportunity, every conflict a mechanism for establishing clarity, and every interference a chance to reinforce the zero state. Those who cannot withstand this approach will fall aside. The people who rely on your indulgence will fail, and you, as the master of your own instruments, remain unshaken, unmanipulated, and in full command. Strategic cruelty, when applied with intelligence and detachment, is the ultimate safeguard against emotional vulnerability and the most effective path to sustained influence in any high-stakes environment. To reach mastery over yourself and your environment, you must enter the zero state, a condition of complete emotional neutrality, absolute focus, and strategic awareness. Robert Greene would describe this as the mind's highest form of leverage, a state where you are fully present, yet unreactive, where every impulse, fear, desire, or hope is observed as data rather than as a command. This is not numbness, nor is it resignation. It is the cultivated ability to see the world as it is, without the distortion of personal attachment or sentimentality. Most people are bound by their emotions. Fear clouds judgment. Desire warps vision, and hope introduces passive expectation. In the zero state, these liabilities are neutralized. You learn to perceive every action, every decision, every social dynamic as a variable in a strategic matrix rather than a moral dilemma. Consider the leaders, strategists, and entrepreneurs who have achieved enduring power in volatile contexts. They operate within the zero state without hesitation. A CEO navigating hostile markets, a general orchestrating troop movements under uncertainty, or a negotiator managing hostile parties, all rely on the same principle. Remove emotion from calculation and leverage every factor with cold precision. Greene emphasizes that emotional disengagement does not mean inaction. It means deliberate, calculated action. It means responding to circumstances according to structure and effect rather than feeling. Every interaction becomes an experiment in influence. Every obstacle an opportunity for advantage, and every threat a mechanism to consolidate strength. In practice, this means you stop overreacting to insult, betrayal, or provocation. You no longer grant power to those who attempt to manipulate your feelings. Your prefrontal cortex, the center of long-term planning and strategy, becomes the operative engine, replacing the limbic system's impulsive response. Decisions once clouded by anger, anxiety, or longing are now executed with clarity. You learn to act without anticipation, to engage without expectation, and to move without hesitation. And the most powerful aspect of the zero state is asymmetry. Those who cannot enter it give away their energy, reveal their intentions, and expose their vulnerabilities. You who have mastered it remain unreadable, untouchable, and strategically dominant. The zero state transforms your mind into a fortress. You see threats clearly, measure opportunities accurately, and act without interference from your own biology or outdated instincts. By neutralizing hope, fear, guilt, and overattachment, you reclaim the ultimate currency of power, freedom over self. Every manipulation becomes a revealed pattern. And in this state, victory is not a consequence of brute force, but of consistent, unemotional, calculated action. The next layer of mastery is strategic apathy, the deliberate calculation of cost and consequence in every interaction without emotional contamination. Robert Greene would frame this as asymmetrical leverage, the ability to assign invisible currency to every action and reaction around you, forcing others to pay for transgressions they believe are free. Most people, when faced with provocation or adversity, mistake restraint for weakness. They fail to price the moves of others in a way that enforces accountability. The moment someone crosses your boundaries, their behavior must generate tangible or invisible consequences, whether it is access withdrawn, scrutiny intensified, opportunities withheld, or reputations subtly undermined. This is not retaliation, it is structural discipline, executed silently, invisibly, and inexorably. Historical exemplars from Renaissance financiers to modern corporate titans applied the same principle. Consider a CEO navigating competitive disruption. Instead of reacting to every attack, they isolate the critical relationships that grant leverage, subtly recalibrate alliances, and allow market forces to enforce consequences on those who miscalculate. A modern green strategist observes patterns of reliance, dependency, and expectation, and then subtly adjusts variables to ensure that every advantage extracted by others is countered by a silent cost. Just as Cosimo de' Medici reclaimed Florence without a single overt confrontation, leveraging the economic and social infrastructure against his enemies, you too can operate in this framework. Loans called in quietly, influence recalibrated without spectacle, contracts adjusted with surgical precision. All of it reinforces a message that aggression against you is never free, that every incursion carries its own price. Within social networks, professional hierarchies, or familial systems, every interaction becomes a strategic exchange. Respect is earned, not assumed. Influence is measured, not given. Trust is conditional, not automatic. The power of pricing in invisible currency lies in the silent accumulation of advantage. Those who fail to perceive it overextend themselves emotionally, exposing vulnerabilities, while you, who act in detachment, remain insulated, adaptive, and in control. Every insult, every betrayal, every attempted manipulation is mapped, analyzed, and assigned a cost that compounds over time, gradually eroding the unearned confidence of your opponents. Strategic apathy transforms observation into action, patience into power, and indifference into leverage. It is the ultimate weapon of asymmetry. While others expend energy in reactive, emotional cycles, you conserve, accumulate, and strike only when the structural advantage is indisputable. In practice, this means observing provocations without immediate response, calibrating consequences that may take weeks or months to manifest, and allowing the system itself to enforce your strategic superiority. The invisible ledger of action and reaction becomes your dominion, and over time, those who challenge you discover, too late, that every misstep carries a cost they underestimated. To master this principle is to neutralize chaos, convert emotional volatility into calculated control, and become a force that others are compelled to respect, not because of intimidation, but because their own choices consistently produce the currency you have determined. Strategic apathy is not indifference. It is deliberate, disciplined, and relentlessly effective. It is the bridge between the zero state and full structural dominance, the point where detachment transforms into authority, and where the world, finally, moves according to your terms. This is the ultimate principle that makes every other rule inevitable. Without it, all previous strategies are theater, easily countered. Every dirty player, every adversary, every manipulator operates under structural constraints, and almost no one exploits their single greatest weakness, time. They are burning energy constantly, emotionally, socially, politically, physiologically. Every alliance they manipulate decays with half-life. Every reputation they damage requires constant maintenance, and every move they execute costs something. Leverage compounds against the leveraged. Your task is not to destroy them directly, It is to remain structurally intact while they accelerate, to preserve your energy, your clarity, and your systems. History offers countless examples. In late 16th century Japan, Oda Nobunaga, brilliant warlord, was assassinated by one of his generals in 1582. Toyotomi Hideyoshi, equally brilliant, spent his last decade exhausting his health, focus, and alliances. He died in 1598 with succession insecure. Tokugawa Ieyasu, the third man, had survived both. He absorbed every slight, endured every humiliation, and watched. He did not compete needlessly. He preserved himself. By 1603, he became shogun, founding a dynasty that lasted 265 years. He outlived them, not by force, but by strategic patience. The modern Robert Greene approach would frame this as structural endurance. Time is the ultimate lever, and you must exploit it. Fine lente, make haste slowly. Act with full intent, but no panic. Treat conflicts as extended campaigns, not single moments. The manipulator wants compressed encounters, fleeting dominion, instant impact. You insist on timescale. You stay coherent, productive, and intact. Your networks, finances, reputation, and mind remain untouched by their frenzy. You leave nothing for them to exploit. You do not react. You do not narrow your life to their arena. Their alliances collapse when transactional leverage evaporates. Their reputation is borrowed and diminishes without continuous upkeep. Time is the most patient executioner, indifferent and unstoppable. Your role is to endure, observe, and compound advantage invisibly. While they expend themselves on tactical skirmishes, you grow strategically. By the time the manipulator burns out, you remain bigger, deeper, sharper, with resources, nerves, and reputation intact. This is not about vengeance. It is about structural victory. They consume themselves. You multiply. You exist outside their metabolism. You are the slow, inevitable force. You outlive them, and in outliving, you win every invisible increment that matters. The mastery of patience and structural endurance is the apex of strategic power, the rule that renders all others effective. The ones who cannot sustain themselves fall away. You persist. You ascend. You endure where others collapse. This is the final law. Win by survival, outlast the expendable, and make history from the patience of your presence. Without endurance, every other move is a tantrum. With endurance, every move is artillery. The hidden power of this approach is what it does internally. When you stop reacting, when you refuse to engage on the terrain the manipulator has prepared, when you observe their first move as data instead of a personal attack, when you price their aggression in invisible currency, and when you remain coherent while they accelerate, something profound happens. The dirty player stops occupying the central space in your nervous system. They shrink, not because you willed it, but because the leverage they once held over you was rooted entirely in your reaction. Remove your participation, and their power collapses naturally. And then a sharper, quieter question arises in your mind. If their power was always contingent upon your engagement, how many other conflicts in your life were artificially inflated because you chose to fight on terrain prepared by others? How many people have ruled you structurally simply because you entered the arenas they curated? This is not a question for immediate resolution. It is a question you carry, a lens through which you begin to see your own autonomy. Most viewers will scroll past this and forget they saw it. You won't. Subscribe if you haven't.